Deep sleep. Am I alone as pure consciousness in deep sleep? I, by my mere presence, illuminate all objects. When the objects are removed, what can I be but light itself? When I am myself the sun, how can darkness approach me? I am myself alone as consciousness and peace in deep sleep. As such, how can I address deep sleep except as I? Since there is no time in deep sleep, both questions, when did one go to sleep and when did one come out of it, are irrelevant. But can death be compared to deep sleep? No, it is fallacious to do so. The experiences of death and of deep sleep are both unknown to the waking mind, and so they are wrongly supposed to be identical by the ignorant man. But in fact, they are poles asunder. Deep sleep is the unique and the independent experience of a whole state. It is the experience of non-duality in identity. But death is only an accident in the waking state. Therefore, they occur in two entirely different planes and can never be compared with one with the other. Because the ordinary man looks upon deep sleep objectively, if deep sleep loses its sense of objectivity and becomes subjective, you are free. The only clue given to us by the unseen to understand one's own real nature is the deep sleep state. That alone is ours, in fact. But how is deep sleep the touchstone of one's real nature? The knowledge of the one object implies the ignorance of all objects other than that particular object. The ignorance of all objects in deep sleep means really the positive knowledge of the self, which shines as happiness there, and consequently the ignorance of the ordinary man in deep sleep is really the knowledge of his own self, which is happiness and consciousness. Our deep sleep experience, according to the lower Shastras, is ignorance coupled with the sense of subjective happiness. We have already proved that the so-called ignorance of the world in deep sleep is nothing but the knowledge of the self, which is happiness itself. Thus, the experience in deep sleep, if it is to be properly understood, is only one, and that is our own self, which is happiness and peace. The rest of the statement is but a commentary upon this. There is only one there, and hence the ignorance of the many is no experience at all. But is there a relationship between deep sleep and the waking state? It is often stated that a man wakes up from deep sleep on hearing a sound, meaning thereby that hearing the sound was the cause of his waking up. No one makes use of the senses or mind in deep sleep because they are not there. So the sound could not have been heard in deep sleep. And when it was heard, he must certainly have been in the waking state. An experience definitely belonging to the waking state can never be said to be the cause of the waking state. So the statement is wrong, and it is not the sound that woke him up. Usually you wake up from the deep sleep state and you cannot find a cause for it. Why can you not assume that you likewise came to the waking state and heard a sound, uncaused? Why do you want a cause for the waking up? But is it possible that deep sleep can alleviate my pains of the waking state? You get cured of your pain and dis-ease immediately you get into deep sleep. And you begin to suffer again when you come back to the waking state. But if you can bring something from the deep sleep to bear upon the waking state, certainly the pain will be relieved in the waking state also. When you experience deep sleep, you stand identified with pure consciousness or peace beyond time. It can never be called the present in deep sleep, but when you refer to it from the waking state, you call the preceding state the deep sleep state, and then it is only an idea. In a similar way, every thought or perception is nothing but the ultimate reality or knowledge itself at the moment when you know it. But when you refer to it subsequently, you make an idea of it, which is not the thing referred to at all. This is the truth of the whole world, which, though a heap of thoughts, feelings, and perceptions, is nothing but pure consciousness. In deep sleep, there is no conception of time. But on waking, you take your concept of time from the waking state and try to apply it to the deep sleep state, and hope thereby to bind deep sleep. But this is impossible. So deep sleep is in fact not bound by time at all. But is not deep sleep a cause of the other two states? In the waking state, you can decide whether there is any connection between three objects, A, B, and C, if they are things perceived in the waking state itself. In the same state, these three objects are governed by the same order of time and the same law of causality. Take the deep sleep state, the dream state, and the waking state as three objects between which you want to know whether there is any connection or not. To do so, you have to see whether these three states are governed by the same order of time and by the same law of causality. But we find that it is not so. The time which exists in the waking state is different from the time which exists in the dream state. In deep sleep, there is no time. Therefore, there is no common order of time governing the three states. Time is the parent of the law of causality, and therefore there can never be a causal relationship existing between deep sleep, the dream state, and the waking state. And therefore, the deep sleep state can never be the cause of the other two states. But what about deep sleep and samadhi of the ignorant man? Here's a question. What is the difference between the experiences of deep sleep and samadhi by one who does not know the nature of the content of either? And this is the answer. The experience in deep sleep, being spontaneous and uncaused, is purely vastu tantra, that is, the creation of truth itself, and leaves no trace of samskara or latent tendency behind it. But samadhi is the product of severe effort and leaves a strong samskara behind, which binds one to the object. This is called Khatri Tantra, that is, caused by effort. Therefore, of the two experiences, the experience of deep sleep is infinitely superior to that of samadhi. But what is sleep really? According to grammar, the verb is and its variants are considered verbs of incomplete prediction or predication, and so do not denote any particular action. All other verbs always denote action. We usually say, I sleep. What does it really mean? Sleep is used as a verb and must denote some action. But do I sleep? Is there any action in sleeping? No, there is not. Sleep is neither an action nor a non-action. There is no ego in sleeping, and there can never be a sleeper. Therefore, nobody sleeps, and sleep is not. Suppose a bucket is lost in a deep well, and you dive down to the bottom to make a search. You touch the bucket there at the bottom and come up to the surface. Coming out of the water, you say you found the bucket. But the bucket was really found while you were under the water, where there was no medium to express that experience. In a similar way, happiness was experienced in deep sleep, but you get hold of a medium to express that experience only after coming to the waking state. Experience is always beyond the mind. The personal I knows it only when the I comes to that realm of the mind, that is, the true I. Still others come to know it when you give it a gross form by putting it into words. But the experience was clearly beyond the mind. Just think what you are in deep sleep. You will find that you are the I principle, pure consciousness alone, divested of body, senses, and mind. You see, you can live quite well without any of these. Now, just see if you ever get out of that I principle of pure consciousness in your dream or waking states. You do not. Thus, you see how you are always in deep sleep, and that is the real self. But what is the relationship between deep sleep and the interval between like two mental activities? These are really one and the same. They appear different because deep sleep comes in the disguise of a state during which emphasis is placed on its limitation and its content is ignored. This prejudice or disguise is purely a product of the waking state. If it is realized as such, and thus given up to the waking state itself, what remains over is identical with the interval between thoughts. That is your own real nature. Are you not annoyed when you are suddenly woken up from deep sleep? That is because you love deep sleep more than you love activity. Deep sleep is complete rest. Egoism is the wrong identification of oneself with the body, senses, and mind. To get to the truth, one has to get the body, senses, and mind separated from the true I principle, pure consciousness. This elimination, coupled with finding your real center and establishing yourself there, is called self-realization. Consciousness never parts with you in any of the three states. In deep sleep, you are conscious of deep rest or peace. Inference is possible only of those things which have not been experienced. The fact that you had a deep sleep or profound rest is your direct experience, and you only remember it when you come to the waking state. It can never be an inference. Experience alone can be remembered. The fact that you were present throughout the deep sleep can also never be denied. The only three factors thus found present in deep sleep are consciousness, peace, and yourself. All these are objectless and can never be objectified. In other words, they are all subjective. But there can be only one subject, and that is the I principle of pure consciousness. So none of these three can be the result of inference, since they are all experience itself. So then, how to make the best use of deep sleep? If you merely direct attention to the deep sleep state, you are thrown into that state. But under the instructions of the Guru, if you direct your attention to the happiness aspect of the deep sleep state, you are thrown into the happiness aspect, which is your own real nature. Then all nations, ignorance drops away, as the material parts of the ego do when you emphasize the consciousness aspect, and you remain in all